Hello and welcome back, and that's right, it's time to continue looking at QNAP and setting your device up right the very first time. And today we are looking at multimedia. As much as I've spoken previously about those of you that are going to utilize a QNAP NAS for backups and VMs and stuff like that, there's a huge contingent of you that are going to be utilizing your device for multimedia, largely because QNAP is a brand that is heavily associated with giving you a pretty decent level of hardware capabilities with your systems. Now, in this video, we're going to be going through photo media, audio media, and video media. But before we go any further, it's worth discussing just a few disclaimers so you understand what this video is, but more importantly, what it isn't. Number one, we aren't going to be discussing Plex Media Server in this video. We're going to do a dedicated video on the subject of Plex Media Server, and the main reason for that is because in Plex Media Server coverage, we're going to be going a lot deeper into the setup of Plex Media Server and a QNAP NAS, and I would rather dedicate a whole video to Plex Media Server, maybe even MB in another video as well. But I thought rather than override that into covering multimedia with the first party apps, I would move that into its own video. But while we're talking about first party applications and services, it is also worth talking on, at least on the subject of photos, that we're not going to be discussing this app here. This is PhotoStation from QNAP. This is now considered legacy and has been replaced by the application known as QuMagie from QNAP, an AI-powered photo recognition tool there. So this video will not be covering PhotoStation, as QNAP have now decided that they are no longer supporting it, and although they will be providing security updates, they are no longer doing feature updates, and they're not going to be integrating a lot of the more featured updates of other apps and services into it. So we're not going to be including PhotoStation. And the last thing it's worth touching on is the fact that we are not going to be looking at HDMI appliances here. What do I mean by that? Well, if your QNAP NAS has got an x86 AMD or Intel CPU, chances are you have seen this symbol here. HD station or hybrid desk station allows you to use the HDMI output from the QNAP with a remote control. And again, there's lots of apps and services that can be rolled in, and indeed we did a full breakdown on this a little while ago where we went into a lot more detail of what you can and can't do with HD station. Now, we are going to be returning to this subject very, very soon, because as you can see, we've not touched it for quite a while. But the point is, nor has QNAP, and QNAP hasn't really done an enormous amount with their HDMI output on their system, so I didn't want to roll it into this video because it's actually a big enough video on its own, but also I was waiting for QNAP to do a meaningful update on that. So because neither of those things seem to have been possible or fit into this video, I'm not including them. But that enormous introduction aside, let's get straight into it. So first thing I want to talk about right now, the following things. I want to talk about uploading, I want to talk about synchronization, and I want to talk about indexing. Now, QNAP has actually got one of the best tools compared with any other NAS brand out there in terms of indexing the multimedia. For those who aren't aware, within the context of NAS, indexing is telling the system where specific data lives and keeping a long-term record of it to speed up the process later on and have the data at the fingertips. Now, QNAP provide an application known as Multimedia Console. A Multimedia Console allows you to gives you a one portal access point to manage the indexing of multimedia across your whole system. So, for example, in terms of content management, the applications and services I've installed at this point, as you can see here at the top, each one of them I can choose just where I want this app to be able to access data. So for QuMagie, for example, a photo application, I tell it exactly where the photos are. Now, the QNAP does give me a bunch of default folders as I install applications, as you can see there, but I like the idea, and you will too, that I can specifically tell the QNAP, this is where my photos are, this is where my music is, this is where my videos are, not just your presets, and then you can crawl from there. And that applies to all of the different applications here at the top. So as you install the apps that we're going to talk about today, make sure, once you've installed them all, to head into Multimedia Console, a completely free application that used to be an optional extra but is now a default app in the QNAP platform. and go through here to make sure you not only tell it exactly where to find the multimedia that you want to crawl across your system, but also you can add caveats and exclusions as well for places you do not want that media taken from. And you can even define how and when and to what severity indexing occurs. So once you've told it where all your media lives, you can set up a light schedule to be when an indexing reoccurs. So regularly, as you add more media, whether you're uploading through your mobile phone, adding new media that you purchased online, you want the system to periodically refresh its indexing there. And you can change the priority of this so the system knows how much resources to throw at the job, but also you can define how and when it happens. And if you want it to be done manually, you can just go ahead and, at the touch of a button, begin that indexing. Same goes for thumbnail generation, something that for a very long time NAS systems in their very early days, we're talking 10-15 years ago, really struggled with. Thumbnail generation, meaning when you were looking at the photos, obviously, although when you select a photo and you want to see it big, you might also want to see the thousands, and I genuinely mean thousands, of individual tiny little images known as thumbnails. And NAS systems always had difficulty managing that particular flow of data, because although they're very small files, you put those across hundreds or thousands of albums, it adds up. And luckily now thumbnail generation once again can be scheduled when needed, can be automated in the event of a change, and can be manually actioned or refreshed whenever needed there. It's very, very handy. So Multimedia Console is a great tool for managing everything on your system, as well as providing recommendations for add-ons you can make to your media system. So make sure, if it's not already installed, to install Multimedia Console before you do anything else. Talking of things to add before anything else, if you intend to use the first-party multimedia tools on your QNAP, and in particular video, I strongly recommend in the App Center, open up the App Center, and on the left-hand side, find the option for multimedia add-ons. There are three options here, TVDB and TMDB options that allow the scraping of metadata for your multimedia. I fully recommend you install them all. You won't need to sign in, you don't need to do anything extra. These are incredibly tiny files, 104 kilobytes in this case, and all they simply do is allow you to scrape metadata online. For those that aren't aware, when you look at things like Netflix and Prime and Hulu and HBO Max and all that stuff, and all of those online streaming platforms, I mean, not only do you have access to the multimedia, but you can see big poster art, the actors, the descriptions, reviews and more. Now, you want that for your own media. You want to be able to have that with your decades of footage, your decades of movies and box sets. What TMDB and TVDB media extensions here on screen do is they allow the scraping of metadata from the TV database and the movie database to be added to your media, which means, and we'll touch on more detail on this later on, that once you're using applications for video such as Video Station on the QNAP NAS, it will scrape that metadata for you. So not only have you now got the box art, but now you've got the actors that are in it, links online, information regarding ratings and more, all of which on your own media. But more on that later on. But definitely just add those three little options there. Now, if you're someone that has a Google device or even an Apple device, chances are you have got years upon years upon years of photos ready to be imported over. Now, this next step is definitely one for you Google Photos users. Now, in previous parts in this series, and I've already touched on this vaguely, but I will touch on it again, it is possible to use tools like Hybrid Backup Sync 3 and cloud synchronization tools to and Hybrid Mount to bolt on cloud services and access your cloud drive. However, services like Google Photos don't let you natively access your photos. All your photos are stored within Google Photos. You can't just log into your Google Drive and go to a Photos album. You need to go in to Google Photos. Now, you can go to a website called Google Takeout, and from Google Takeout, log in with your Google account and then scroll down, find Photos, and then from Photos you can download your entire photo collection. But just bear in mind, it won't have the metadata attached there. It will allow you to download those. However, there isn't a way to make that even easier. within the QNAP system, head into the App Center, and within the App Center, find an application known as MARS, or Multi-Application Recovery Service. Install this application, and once it's open, head in to the left-hand side and search for the option called Google Photos. The Google Photos option, and then Add Service, then give it a name. And then once you've given it a name, connect with your Google Photos account. Log in, and then from there, once you've verified and given it permission to synchronize with your Google account, this is a disposable one we use at NAS Compares, you can then click Apply, and it will pull all of your Google Photos onto the NAS. Again, your metadata will be missing, and you will need to go to Google Takeout to download something called the JSON files, and you can use some online scripts to bind them together. But at the very least, you will have all of your Google Photos online ready on this system to be utilized in conjunction with QNAP's photo services like QuMagie. More on that later on. Let's talk streaming. Some of you are not going to want to use all of these applications and services. Some of you just want the NAS to live in your local area network and allow you to stream your movies, watch your box set, listen to your music. Those devices that are on their most basic level just streaming media, these can often be referred to as UPnP or DLNA devices, Universal Plug and Play and Digital Living Network Alliance devices. The majority of smart TVs these days, mobile phones, tablets, laptops, they all support this service. Now, if that sounds like just a basic level of what you just want to do with none of the bells and whistles, go ahead into the App Center and download the Media Streaming Add-on application here. It's a real straightforward file. It's very, very small, only 60 megabytes, and it's pretty regularly updated too. Once it's open, you can go in, and from here, you can just tell it where your media lives and that you want to crawl that media. Remember, Multimedia Console is the tool you wanted to use if you go into Multimedia Add-on and tell the system where your media lives. And you can break down right away into breadcrumbs as well there. But the result is, from here, this now allows the multimedia you've pointed at to be accessible on the local area network. Bear in mind, this is read only, so no editing can be done. On top of that, it is at its lightest form just multimedia, with a lot of the conversions, the transcoding and the changing and the supported media formats being a little bit more limited than using the first party tailored tools that we'll talk about later on in the video. But at the very least, from here you can define it to an individual user. So for those that watch part 2 in this series, you'll know that I talked about the usefulness of assigning identities for different services. So if you created a video account or a multimedia account, you can choose that multimedia account and ensure that this one account that can be used on all your multimedia devices will give you access to that multimedia, but not too much power, where those devices, if they were compromised for security, could then damage the rest of your data or the NAS itself. You can bind a specific physical connection on the NAS. So if you've got multiple physical connections on the back, RJ45 network, etc., you can bind multimedia streaming via DLNA to a single port if you choose. And that means that the other port won't be oversaturated or used for non-multimedia. So that other port could be used for editing, for backups, for whatever. This allows you to choose which ports on your system, if they're feeding into a switch or router, will be utilized. Now, browsing settings will allow you to not only change how things are displayed, whether you want to use larger thumbnails for images or the full original images, whether you want to use and customize the user interface with slightly more customizable media DLNA devices that are accessing this media. Alternatively, media streamers will allow you to search the local area network for media streaming devices and connect them together to add even more features and services for you to utilize and pass them through, as well as assign and send data in some cases. More on that later on. And ultimately, it's a great little tool for just managing a low-level, low-resource consuming multimedia server on the local area network. And although you can open up ports to allow remote access to this, utilizing UPnP services by going into the settings, I wouldn't recommend it. I would utilize this tool for local streaming, and if you're going to start looking into external access, where you're going to need to use tools like Tailscale or QNAP's own MyCloud services, then after that point you should look at some of the apps we're about to discuss. Let's talk music, and for music they've got their own tool, unsurprisingly known as Music Station. Music Station is a central management platform for all of your audio. Again, Multimedia Console will allow you to make sure the indexing is done correct and the right folders and files and folders are accessed, and you have the glossy user interface there, but you've also got the general listing one here. Anyone that was a fan of the old Winamp days will be very familiar with this kind of layout. But bear in mind, not only can you access this on the web browser, you can also choose to direct stream to network devices that work as streaming receivers. And again, that goes for smart TVs and speakers too. Alternatively, you can head to the download section of QNAP's website and download numerous utilities for multimedia as well as mobile applications as well. And on the subject of mobile applications, it's also worth touching on things like the QMedia skill for Amazon Fire TV that allows you to browse and access all of the media on your NAS, photo, music and video, directly from an Amazon Fire TV. And there are Android related apps as well, and you can go and you reutilize some of the apps that are really just the mobile apps that have been repackaged there in the background, but they're not bad and they certainly do the job. But I would say the QMedia tool is probably the better pick of the lot in terms of streaming your media onto a local DLNA device there in a tailored fashion to photos, music and video, with each of the settings within QMedia drawing from Music Station and Video Station and QuMagie respectively to utilize the media with the thumbnails and direct format there. Now, audio is completely controllable through here. If you want to add new directories, you can. If you go to the settings menu, there are some settings and options that are unique to Music Station. So for example, adding individual music folders, you don't have to do that here because it will read from Multimedia Console. If you have multiple users or you want to change what some users can access on your system for all those accounts, so for example, even if you haven't created a dedicated music or streaming account for the system, if you didn't want to do that, you can choose which of the media services people can use. Additionally, if you want to upload music to the system from a PC or a mobile device, you can pre-select the default drop area for those. Also keep in mind, and this also applies to the mobile applications as well, just because you're streaming this music from here, there's actually quite a lot of configuration options open to you. So for example, if you can go ahead and start sharing files if you wish via a remote link or directly via email if you've associated remote access and an email account with the system. Create custom playlists and more. You can even find out more information about which files have been played the most. You can even import some of your iTunes data as well. And there are additional third-party applications that I'm not going to talk about today that allow you to manage third-party streaming services onto your QNAP NAS there. I just wanted to focus a lot more on QNAP's own for this video, but if you're an iTunes user or other third-party services, there are some first and third-party tools on the QNAP Club as well to bolt on those services appropriately. Having the audio set out and laid out correctly in Music Station via the graphical user interface here in the browser makes accessing it and enjoying it on the other devices significantly easier. Now, moving away from music, let's start talking about photos. Within Multimedia Console, we've already talked about how we are not going to be focusing on Photo Station there, but we are going to be talking about QuMagie. This is their AI-powered photo recognition tool. We open it up, and again, it's an application that's available in the App Center, but bear in mind, when you install it, you will also need to install the AI engine from QNAP. Now, the QNAP AI engine, I'm pleased to confirm, does not use outside resources. So when you are utilizing QuMagie and you're using their AI, do keep in mind that this is all running in system. You need to download the application like any other app from the internet, and you can upload it directly from your local PC if you choose onto the NAS. But all of the AI processes you're seeing the system do are in system. You could disconnect it from the internet and it would still do the job. And if in doubt, you can go into the AI engine area of the QNAP and disable features directly within the AI if you choose. So if you don't like it running, or you only want to run it periodically, you can utilize that within Multimedia Console. But if we open up QuMagie now and take a look at the application, and that's not the right one there, we want QuMagie. From QuMagie, the first thing you see, once the indexing has completed, you will see an interface there of all of your images. And again, you can see a big layout. Or you can go into the Explore tab, which not only has all of the faces that the AI has picked up during the course of its indexing, but moving forward, as you add more photos to the system, either from the mobile app or directly from your desktop PC, if those same faces appear, it will then add them to the recognizable database of faces. So for example, if I pick this person here and I put Robbie, I can click OK and boom. I can even register that to this account. So for example, let's say this chap here, and by the way, this is a chap called Chris. If I want, I can go ahead, select that name, say who am I, and then I can select I am to make that the admin user if I chose. Again, you'll see that recent tab, we can largely ignore that, but as you name more and more people, this database will get larger and you can utilize this information to find lots of different users. So for example, heading back, you can use the search functionality now, and if you wish, type in individual users and names. So for example, if we go into the top now and we type in Robbie and then we type in Katie, it will find photos that have got Rob and Katie in that same picture. Once we've found those pictures, we can choose to, if we wish, go ahead and start adding them to individual albums. So we select those photos and say we want to create an album of Rob and Katie. And remember, we can add lots of names if we choose. From there, if we wish, we can go ahead and create ourselves a brand new album. We'll call this album R and K. Then we can set permissions to individual users on the device or keep it as a public remote access album if we wish. Make it NAS users, click save. We can even add lots of settings there, and that creates a brand new album. If we head into the gallery, into Explore, from there we've now got our new album of Rob and Katie for us to access there if we need to there at the top. Same goes in the albums. If we create them, we can create them on the fly the other way around. So if we wish, we can use some of the filters here that are built into the system, either by photos we've recently updated or by going through the timeline and finding out more and adding photos ad hoc, although that will obviously take longer. Now, when you are setting up QuMagie for the first time, you may notice that the AI photo recognition is not immediately accessible, and that's because AI photo recognition takes time. Traditional indexing takes time, but AI photo recognition takes a little bit longer. So when you do set up QuMagie for the first time, in the top right of the screen, and I'm going to disable my camera here because it's totally in the way, select settings, and then from there, not only can you manage those content sources and hidden sources, go into the QNAP AI and ensure that facial recognition has been enabled. You can even hide people if there's people you want to get rid of. Once you've done that, from that point, the AI will kick in and you can back up that information if you wish to ensure that it is restorable in the event of a system restart, a system restoration from scratch. It's all fairly standard stuff there, but just keep in mind that again, this will eat resources. Once you factor in transcoding, which is when a file needs to be reshaped to be better suited to the destination device, that too will start eating up more of your resources. Now, heading back into the main gallery, one of the things you can do if you want to create an intelligent created filter beyond than just using AI photo powered names, recognized names, click the filter option at the top right. Now from here, this allows us to add a few filters and create our brand new album. So for example, I only want to use photos. I want to use photos that have got me in them. I want photos of just me from 2020 to be used. Sorry, I tapped the wrong one there. Mouse going crazy. And there you go. Straight away, we've got the option of photos from 2019 and 2020 that have got me in them. But we can go even further than that. We can add further filters, a lot of these filters of which have been added thanks to AI photo recognition. And some of these we'll talk about in a moment. But For example, when we're looking at all these individual photos and we remove all of those filters and come out, if we select a photo, so let's go with this picture of my cat, we select the eye there at the top, and not only have we got information on the name, but we've got it broken down significantly in terms of geolocational data there at the bottom. We've got information on the device that took the photo. We can find out a huge amount of information from the aperture to the ISO about that, all stored in the metadata of that picture. If we wish, we can share that image with different users, and again, we can even choose a fidelity period for how long we want that share to last, as well as generating a password if we wish. It's that straightforward. Downloading images locally is possible very easily. Regenerate the thumbnail if you think it's not right. Rotate, all the usual options, exactly what you would expect. And on top of that, you can do weird drawings and add stuff, or add additional photo recognition if we choose, if we want to add those extra ones that may have been missed in the original AI scan. The AI recognition also extends to things, where items and things have been recognized, but you don't have a huge amount of control over that. But I will say the object recognition is pretty darn good. So for example, click food and it breaks down into different categories, although of course they're not perfect. Mistakes do still seem to happen. Ultimately, as long as you've used Multimedia Console at the very beginning to ensure that you're indexing the correct folders and allowing the AI to be able to access everything, QuMagie really will take care of itself, and that filter there on the right hand side is what will really put together the creation of a great database of photos. And bear in mind, you've even got file folder access that will allow you to access the folders that you assign manually if you choose, as well as, if you wish, use that geolocational data we discussed to, crawl for location data around the globe. Again, we're still waiting on the map view to come back, and unfortunately that's still something that was limited to PhotoStation only, but nonetheless, that is a lot of configuration at your fingertips for photography. Now we're going to end this video on VideoStation. VideoStation, although it's not quite as good as Plex Media Server, it still has a decent amount going for it. We've already seen it here in our web browser via the GUI, and as mentioned, there is mobile applications for VideoStation, as well as after Multimedia VideoStation client applications, and going on Amazon to find out more about the QNAP and QMedia application as well, available for Amazon Fire TV and others. But VideoStation, once you have used Multimedia Console to crawl the appropriate multimedia files, the next thing you want to do is ensure that you are scraping that metadata. That was why at the beginning of this video, I strongly recommended you download those services there, because in VideoStation, what you need to do is start adding some of those multimedia directories. We've already got several here that I've crawled already. But TV shows and movies, this is the only way we were able to crawl that metadata appropriately. If you're unsure whether you've got the metadata being scraped, go into the settings menu at the top right. This allows you to know whether you're going to want to use the IMDb or TMDB databases. And of course, once you go to the TV section, you can use the TV database if you choose to crawl for a different one there. There's a lot of filters there at your disposal, and you can add them as and when. So let's say, for example, we wanted to create a brand new category, and we'd call this one television. From there, we'd select the TV shows option, click create, and our new television tab is available. From there, we would say we want the TV database. We'd say the language we want it in, select add, select the directory that we want to use. In my case, TV is located here. And then from there, click OK. Now bear in mind, if you are utilizing it already in another category, it will let you know. From there, it's now adding that new TV database, and as soon as it's added, it will begin crawling that data. You can see at the bottom, it's now started indexing that media for us. And there you are, we're in it here, and there is that movie database being crawled for those same TV shows we just discussed. It's that straightforward. Now, on the left-hand side here, we've also got several options for creating our own custom albums. You can create a collection on the system, call it test here, who it's shared with. So you can go with individual NAS users or you and create this collection and start adding one by one media to go in. And you can head in to any file that you want to dig into, right click and add it to the collection that you're creating if you want to create a bespoke collection. And the same goes if you want to use the search functionality to look for specific media and add that to its own collection. On top of that, you can use Smart Collection to crawl for certain kinds of media and certain metadata to pop it together into its own collection there together. Finally, transcoding. Now, transcoding on your system, if you are going to be using native transcoding within VideoStation, you do have to use the Cyan player. I'm not including it in this video as it's not a first-party tool, but the Cyan player allows you to utilize HEVC media, and there is a free version available, but it's a little janky. And for this kind of stuff, if you're going to go down the road of requiring transcoding natively, at this point, if this seems like something you're going to need, I would recommend going into Plex Media Server. Again, something we'll cover in a future video coming up very, very soon. But that's really it for VideoStation. Once you've installed an application for your mobile, for your desktop streaming or whatever, accessing your multimedia will be very straightforward indeed. And once you're in and watching the multimedia on your local system, there are options for configuring, reshaping the file, but you will be locked in on the multimedia device you happen to be using there. Finally, when it comes to some of the extra add-ons to do with audio or subtitles, head into the settings menu in the top right of VideoStation, and from there you can auto download subtitles if you wish. And if you're going to use open subtitles, you will need a login, but alternatively you can use the wiki subtitle pages, and definitely on the audio pages you can take advantage of those. Then you can directly choose which of your active users, much like we saw earlier with photos and music, who have got access to it either on the fly via transcoding options or just general streaming of network data. And finally, if you want to utilize some of your own pre-existing subtitles, you can add them here on this tab. But that's about it. As mentioned, there are a lot more multimedia applications on the QNAP system that we are going to discuss in future videos. Definitely Plex Media Server will have its own update, installation and setup video very soon, which may be live already, and if so, hopefully linked on the side of the screen. Otherwise, there are third-party applications such as Rune and Kazoo, and Cinema 28, although a little janky again, is still not too bad. Ultimately, of the lot, it's still Plex Media Server and MB for the most part for me that I would recommend, and of course Jellyfin. And if you want to utilize Jellyfin, we have already made a setup video as well as recommending the QNAP Club download for you to check out. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you need further assistance, as always, head over to NAS Compares and take advantage of the free advice section and the NAS Builder if you need assistance with your existing QNAP NAS system, or you're still on the fence about which system you need. The free advice section not only links to those third and first party forums, along with third and first party support platforms and specific Reddit subreddits, but on top of that, you can get answers from me and Eddie within 3 to 5 working days completely for free, or you can utilize our expedited service for 24-hour support. Alternatively, after the NAS Builder, if that's not enough and you're still on the fence about what you need, you can always use our community support forum or head over to Ko-Fi, where from here, not only can you join our membership program for more expedited support more regularly and early access to these videos and our monthly Zoom, but on top of that, you can go ahead and arrange to speak with me or Eddie via Zoom for a 1-hour consultation. And I won't lie, I play it pretty fast and loose with the definition of an hour. Sometimes I've been on there for 2 to 3 hours. I don't mind. It's just great to talk to people about this. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you on the next video.